Greetings, my starseeds. With me. How do you like the angelic fashion show? So, today's topic, how we want to put it, adjusting the camera a little bit, make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Now, let's say, there's a real explanation of people say, you call yourself Ra. Why do you call yourself Ra? What does that mean? And are you Ra? Now the embodiment of that is what is the memory complex of aligning the planet. Well, first off, Ra is Rebel Alliance, Rainbow Ascension. I would be like the Green Lantern. There are many species and many races, they're all lanterns, like they're all Ra. And they have the ring, which is a conduit that actually transfers the consciousness of the Ra and the power that's required for them to protect worlds, 4 elements. And there are many, and they're all of the Ra, so hence they're called Ra. That means the Green Lantern is the physical representation in the flesh for the consciousness that represents that big green lantern in the Marvel comic book. That is that consciousness that is guarded by a high council of blue beings. It's all channeled storyline for us to remember who we are. Now, break down the galactic history. Is you have to, in order to understand why you're here on this earth, understand galactic history. Some people say this is supposed to be, we chose to be here. Not quite. There were accidents, there were mishaps, there was fallen consciousness, and us making the excuse why it is so. It shouldn't be so, and it could have been prevented. Now we're here to fix this. Some of us are, I would call a new term, I heard, but I know exactly what it is, because I was told that when I talked to the council, embedded citizens. Embedded citizen means that you are an intergalactic royal representation with memory codes dormant, waiting to be activated when contact is close, imminent, or to be established. Also, to activate what is imminent planetary repair. Look at what we have did to Mars, or what we have done to Mars. We're going to go there and we're going to find remnants of us. That's going to be the funny part. We have to seriously laugh at. That's part of the egoic personality overlay that I'm just sharing with you. That they would say, we come from outer space in form of bacteria. That's all nice, but that's not the truth. The Maya say that this body is an illusion, that we're living the illusion. If you watch the movie Westworld, you'll understand your body is android. This is a biocybernetic organism at the highest level of natural intelligence tech put together by many races to help you interface with consciousness, which is realer than this, because this comes and goes. Your consciousness remains forever. So I had a vision once where I opened my eyes and looked at my arm, and it was all cybertronics. And I asked, what is this? And they said, well, that's part of the creation of those who created this vessel and program constructs. So I could see templates, program routines, some people call spells, curses, DNA, RNA coding, and I understood what I saw. I have no proof. I only have the understanding of what I looked at, and I said, this body is we're partially cyborg. Not in a mechanical way. They're doing their best to bypass your 5 senses for you to not understand that this is not just human and flesh. This is, you see, the veins, these are alive wires. The blood used to be navigational. That's why the Hebrew letters are called fire letters in some parts. You used to be a navigator. You used to be interstellar. You used to be out there. You were not recycled. There are stories about, I say, lower class extraterrestrials, not of Earth, that know how to transfer soul into another body to keep the consciousness on the planet, because they need that consciousness here, which has a higher geo and planetary political reason why they do that. but you were actually naturally in your DNA coding not designed to stay here or come back. So, but you will stay here when you're born with amnesia. That is a program aspect that was put into this Anunnaki and Elohim Adamite android body. You're not really Homo sapien, Homo sapien. There are aspects in there that are so disguised in the control programming and of the fall of consciousness that you don't even know. We cannot begin to explain where this is and how deep the manipulation on this planet goes. So, if I was a visitor in the past, that would have appeared to you like this. Wings not giving me wings that later on were giving in Holy Scriptures. That's why I'm wearing this. Wings resembling that I'm a pilot or I'm a captain. So I give you a few cases of things that really took place. I suggest if you want to go deeper, get the book. J.F. Blumrich, ex-NASA head director or scientist, if I'm not mistaken, who was a disbeliever of such until he met Erich von Däniken. It's called the Ezekiel prophecies or the Ezekiel sightings. As you see Ezekiel and you see a ship. I'll get to the explanation in a minute. Also the confusion of the Most High and how the transliterators added the word God and the theologians saying, well, the guy had visions of God, this couldn't have been real. So let's start with the Ezekiel prophecy, which is my favorite thing. Keeps coming up over and over and over, but this is like really like basics before we even go into UFOs and why. Oh, on a side note, why you have an android body, understand this. Why is it that the Quran says you have 7 people that look like you on this planet? Why is it that by genetics and by energetic relation you're related to the entire planet by 6 people? The further back you go, the more everybody's related to each other, like Iceland, cousin to next the 60th degree cousin of whatever came before, and you look at their faces, the Iceland, you can see the genealogy that they all kind of like mixed and they came from one stem. So did we. That's how creation started. There were prototypes that were developed, but they tried to make it diverse so you wouldn't see the prototypes. Has it with cloning, Star Wars, the Clone Wars. You got to pay attention to what's being propagated. Now, this is the time where all knowledge is being revealed. So you have to ask yourself at the same time, why is it that I have 7 doppelgangers on this planet, look-alike, or people that think that you're somebody? That I had that at the airport. Somebody was like, yeah, George, Charles. And I'm like, I'm not George, I'm not Charles. And they're like, oh my God, I know somebody who looks just like you, same demeanor, same figure. I'm so sorry, sir. And then, yeah, the Quran saying that. And now a website opened. It's called strangertwins.com, where people that look alike find each other and they're amazed. So there were also tests on people, different father, different mother, nowhere near of a relation that you can fathom in your timeline. But if these people that look alike take genetic samples, how come there's a 70 to 85% match? Because you're clones, not your consciousness. And this might be shocking, and it might be like a theory where you're like, oh my God, but this is what I was revealed to be. We are duplicates. And that was the only way for them, the Naburians that came here, to create a slave race to mine for them and run mining operations that they could control. So understand your android body has program aspects that lie dormant. The eye of Horus is the pineal gland. If you don't know how to look through the eye of Horus or the looking glass, you can't activate this body fully. This body has codes from Ea, which is the brother that was in dispute with the Enlil. Enlil was the Lord of Command. First there was the Word, and the Word was with God. That is the Enlil in the Sumerian tablets. They are older than the Bible. I'm just looking at patterns. We have 470 religions that claim this God, that God. There's only about one creator, and there's one knowledge, and we got fragmented to bits. We have to understand this is an intergalactic war that probably went on for billions of years. So could you even fathom how deep we have fallen in consciousness fighting each other? So take the word angel out of the equation and say extraterrestrial. Let's say I would be an angel, okay? I'm a royal. Royal also means that I'm upper dimensional, higher dimensional. I can appear in front of you. I can interfere, inspire to a certain degree. So I would appear in a mental construct appropriate to your conscious belief system. I would go into the mythological template knowing, here's this. There are lower class ETs that deal with cattle mutilation, trying to extend their life. They don't know that the soul is eternal and that you have to really go through a certain maturity level and an experience level as a soul to even be at that level, that you just continue on and switch bodies or worlds or consciousness or whatever you want to do. So they still kind of, they were ETs in timelines that messed up and went extinct. So I believe, to my experience and the pattern recognition that I have from stuff that I've seen, is they are here to fix that time code or that timeline and repair that by hybridizing us. That's partially agreed and partially not agreed. Soul transferring us, checking parallel lives. A person that I admire, Linda Moulton Howe, kind of explained it's the 16th dimensional chess game. The players are the same, but the positions energetically are the same, but the garments, as in the suits, are different. And that's why we're confused. Somebody could be King Herodotus or Herodot, and today he is, I don't know, Peter Schmidt. And you wouldn't know that he's that consciousness, and he doesn't even know what his job is. And he has a company, he runs a couple of people, and it comes back to an ancient betrayal. So here's a storyline that I relive, but you're not supposed to tell the others when you realize that I have met souls that I know from the past life that betrayed me in Atlantis. But not only in Atlantis, Lemuria, then it goes back to Sirius, it goes back to Rigel, it goes back to Regulus, Antares. We've been in many, many stations, and sorry for the sound, chopper tourism. And what these souls have to learn is, in their program aspects, in their android, cosmic android self, they need to remember their doings and not do it again. But I had another case where I had met a group of people where I thought, okay, let's lead them, build that team. That's what I believe. This is all about resonance. You don't have to believe me. This is about feeling, okay? Not about logic. And for the haters, I can't explain myself to you because there's actually no time. The same thing, same problem. Let's say I'm a high priest. I have attained a high alchemical level. So they would say magi or druid, but it's also science, where science and what we call magic is one. And also back then in the past, the mastery of photonic energy, knowing how light levels work. The secret to time travel and dimensional travel has to do with light, not with electromagnetism. And the Large Hadron Collider is not going to be the solution to find the Higgs particle. Also, when you ignite an atomic bomb, you rip time and space to a degree that those who are doing it are either manipulated or you don't understand. You have fabrics in layers in dimensions that are protected by dimensionality. When you rip tears in that without permission, you can destroy entire galaxies. Meaning, if your nuclear bomb has the right power and the right match, even those cabal and all of those negatives and anybody of these agents and reptilians that listen to this, you're all gonna be sucked to bits, to unconscious, and this has to stop. The war is about energy. There is an energy that comes from source and creator, a form of the capture, squeeze, insert, project and charge and install to actually master that. When we learn that, our consciousness will click right, we will function right, and we will become one. Oneness means I say something and you agree, not because I'm convincing and I'm so intense. No, it's because you have a resonance that has to do with telepathic resonance, where you get it. Meaning, like, we cross the mountain, let's say I'm the guide or I'm the shepherd, and I'll tell you this is the path. And at the end of the day, you have to look at all of these people that you helped cross. Did everybody make it safe? Was everybody taken care of? And if others, and that's the power with the people, look at this and say, this guy here, he's been doing this for thousands of years, and he always saved them. Those that didn't listen got caught in an avalanche. Sometimes the telepathic contact for people is kind of diminished, is kind of whack, and people need help. Then you need to listen. Who's a shepherd soul? You need to understand who that is. Not by, I command you. I know I'm a commander. Many of us are commanders, but commander mean, do you choose to be that? Is that your role? Do you understand your crew? You have crews on your ship that await your command. You have what they call a God body on a ship, and you have an android body in which you use your consciousness for, but your consciousness can use this and can use a different body. You're not bound to this. It's the mythological concept and the traps and time loops and Mandela effects that keep people trapped in false belief systems and illusions of, I have experienced that, or I heard such and such, or if 100 people say they have experienced that, and I'm not talking about a divine encounter, I'm talking about crap that keeps you in a loop to believe something that is really not beneficial and actually non-essential to the development of your soul. And that requires, I must say, intelligence. So even people that want to debate this is so deep. At the end of the day, in one movie somebody said, even the devil wants to go home. So even the evil ones want this to stop. They don't want to run. And there's ETs, lower class, I say. They're somewhat more dimensional and they're a little denser. They can go in and out. They have tricks. But there's manipulation. Don't fall for the okie doke. So there are splinter groups that really kind of like not play according to the book. And we want to play according to the divine book and the guidelines that are given by the divine. And we must really learn to listen to what is divine and divinely propagated to us, for us, by us. So now let's go to the Ezekiel prophecy or the Ezekiel sighting. And let's change the word of the God. Change the word of angel. Angel is going to be ET. And the guy describes something. Now you have to get into the mind state of a guy. Let's say I would go back with a chopper with a lot of lights and a psychotropic substance that I would spray over Jerusalem, and I would hover over Jerusalem. Everybody sprayed. And I use a megaphone proclaiming that I'm the word of God and it's time to build a new Jerusalem. Well, guess what? Everybody would believe that I'm God because of my technology and the power of my manipulation through that, and people would line up like lemmings, sorry to say, and I would point to a mountain and say, build a temple in my name, and I can say my name is Jafua, and I want a resemblance of my image. I will project a holographic image over Jerusalem, and then I will proclaim this is the word, and then I will make rules that I want you to follow by. So you don't know what my agenda is, you don't know what race I am, you don't know why this is being done. So a temple is being built, a resemblance of my image. Sounds so human, you know, the manipulation. And then I have followers, and guess what? I have complete control over you because you were impressed back then. Now, but here is when the divine beings come in. Those that really act according to source and creator. Let's say they dress like this, in a robe, they have their emblems. People copy that and mimic that because that's what they remember seeing. So Ezekiel describes in a scroll where I spoke to people that know the original transcripts of Ezekiel. The Ezekiel prophecies in the Bible are transliterated. They added words, they changed stuff. Ezekiel wrote in present, and they wrote in future tense. Is it future tense? Of like there will be, I will be, they will be, and there will be. The original text talk about I saw, like I see a temple. I was taken to that mountain. I was given that rod to measure, like I break down the story. So he's by the river Chebar. He's a slave, but he's a high priest. So if I'm an extraterrestrial, or I'm a little bit more advanced human, then I know your brain sequence. I know your brain's signature, and I know the timelines and the possibilities of what you can create when I make contact. So this is well strategized before we even approach you. So I would look at, okay, there's all of these people. I would deem it lower consciousness. Be careful. If you're a time traveler, you gotta be hella careful to make contact because it can wreak all types of havoc that we have been in the past with angels appearing, influencing stuff, and turning things around that are really miraculous. Like this one angel I don't know the exact story, that killed hundreds of thousands of Assyrians in the past with one stroke. Like, they had no chance. It was an extraterrestrial, probably Naburian, that exerted his power and the weapon that he had. And the paintings show an angel above all the dead bodies. No, there was manipulation, there was influence, and you have to understand now, they can't do that with us right now because we have a technical mind state. We're beginning to wake up. We're beginning to understand if something in the sky isn't quite right, or the holographic matrix begins to glitch, meaning, let's see, I see a Boeing flying. All of a sudden, let's say this height, the thing disappears, or it blimps, like we have seen that, it blimps in and out. That means, okay, something is like the Truman Show here. We have to understand. And people don't say, if we're like sheeples and we don't pay attention, then we don't see what's going on. We have no idea. We run around, we pay our tax, we go to work, we get our paychecks, and it's a routine. So very hard for our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters to connect with us if our pineal gland is kind of locked. We're bombarded with unholy sequences. We're using dark energy for entertainment. Understand? The new energy, the divine energy, is electricity off the grid, not 60 hertz. The Schumann resonance frequency, which is the same, make no mistake, I keep checking this guy, Ben Lone Tree, it is still the same. It is to believe that the Schumann resonance only will increase when the circumference of this planet increases. That is not the case right now. You get it? This body is not growing right now. But we're rising in consciousness. The plasmic levels are rising. The sun rays that are hitting us are higher. And if you do not develop your consciousness, thus your light body, you'll get sunburned easier, or you can't integrate your shadow and you totally flip out. It's gonna be tough. It's not all rainbows and skittles what the awakening path is. We are awakening. We see it happening in places where you wouldn't believe that it's taking place, but look at all the stuff that's being released, how quick people can watch, I don't know, 10 episodes in 3 days. Our perception rate is quicker. We understand what's what, and very quick we'll understand what's illusion and what's real. What's the theoretical wizard with esoteric stuff out there, and who's the practical wizard who has actually applicable stuff. For that I will do a retreat to give you an experience where stuff that really, really works, and not just kumbaya, project to the flame and you astral projecting, you imagining that when it's not really happening. We want real experience, real stuff taking place. So in the past, we were more gullible. We are gullible in a sense in terms of Hollywood and entertainment and what's supposed to be rich and what's supposed to be the ideal or idealistic lifestyle, but they can't approach us in ships, come with ropes and proclaim the word and say build a church, because we don't believe it anymore. We're done with that. So here's what happened to Ezekiel. Ezekiel is by the river Chebar. The Babylonians were the rulers back then. The dates are depicted in the book of Ezekiel. He says it was the third day on the third month by the river Chebar, and he saw a majestic thing coming from the sky. He described it as the Most High, not the Most High God. In the original script, he says the Most High, which is the highest excitement, the highest experience as in visual, comes from the sky. Now, he explains that the Most High coming from the heaven parted the clouds. So you in your right mind, this is Hebrew text, let's say roughly 2,000 years old, where it says the Most High, the splendorness of the Most High comes from the heavens. It parts the heavens, it parts the clouds, and it makes a thundering noise. And the description says, once I read, of noise like hundreds and hundreds of thundering waterfalls. Or he says it makes a noise like thousands of legionnaires marching through the desert. So ask yourself in your mind where you are right now. It's like ancient alien, hello. What comes from the sky that is so impressive? And he says it's happening now. I'm not saying the dude's in a trance, falls around and has visions of God, as all the other transliterations say. This was a vision. He was inspired. He saw something in his mind's eye. No, the dude I'm at the river Chebar at the third month, at the third day. He's clear. He's coherent. He's there. Now we have to use our mind. Now Ezekiel looks into the sky and sees this thing coming before him. And then he describes it, but nobody was able to paint it because the mentality back then of the ancient theological, mythological, religious belief system needed to create and paint pictures for you to grasp what you can't grasp. So it's God, it's a mystery, it's shrouded, but it's not shrouded. He says it had 4 beings, or 4 angels with wings attached to it. It was glistening like all colors of the sky at once, and at the center was a throne, and in the center sat the Most High, who seemed to be in control of that splendorness. Well, the Most High, the guy in charge, is Captain Kirk, understand? He's the captain, he's the Most High. He's the one with the highest rank where the others bow, and he says and they follow. Well, Ezekiel later on will observe that. Now, he says it came before him. He describes angels. He says they look different from 4 angles, so I don't know if he sees an insignia, like one was a bull, the other one was a lion. I forgot the other 2. You have to read the book to be precise, so maybe that's an insignia of the astronauts that came, and he describes wings. So I believe this was a scout craft that came from a bigger place or a bigger ship. So they're scouting out. Who are we going to pick? So this is strategically mapped out. They know who they're going to pick. They pick a high priest who's going to write scriptures. They know he will write scriptures, and they know he will be in the timeline, and they know, probably looking at probable timelines, the guy will write this encounter down. We will give him some knowledge. We won't give him the technology or the magic. We would just let him document what's happening. So he says the hand of God took him into the ship. So whatever came over him, graviton ray, whatever you want to call it, he describes the hand of God took him into the ship. He said, I was taken into the splendorness of the Most High. And then he says, and then we took off, and I felt the pressure of God's hand, or I felt the pressure of a high unseen force on my chest. Well, that's gravity. He's being pushed in a chair as the thing rapidly takes off. He describes looking to the ground. That's 2,000 years old, mind you. And they take him to a station, a temple. And that, now I'm giving you stuff that a lot of people missed that, but you have to watch Erich von Däniken's Legacy, the 50th anniversary, where that's being repeated, which I find you'd have to be retarded to not understand what's going on. I have to say this. Really, really phenomenal. So, in the Ezekiel prophecies, in the Bible, is described how these dudes that were glittering garments that shone like the sun, and boots that look like burnished brass. Use your mind. That looks like a freaking spacesuit. Glittering and a protective suit. So they take him to this station, to this temple, which I think wasn't a temple, I think it was an airport. But we'll get to that. They land in that thing, and they tell him, we brought you up here to document. So here's a rod, here's an instrument. He said a silver rod, and he used that rod to measure the thing. He said, we want you to measure length, width, and height, and write it down, and then we will return you. And he was like, why all of this with me? And they're like, that's the reason we brought you to this mountaintop. So he said that he saw a very high mountain. In and around Jerusalem, which is in the other translations, there are no high mountains of what he describes. He describes a long, long flight away from Chebar into the country to a high mountain, which was probably so high that regular hikers couldn't reach that because of the dimensionality, and the let's say advanced humans were like, we're safe up here when we have a landing port here, and we'll pick people every now and then to influence them so they understand and may not forget where we come from. So he measures the temple, goes back, puts it in the scrolls, the papers of Ezekiel, which are partially in the Bible, and then an architect in Germany takes the measurements and builds that thing according to the description. And you see, like, you could say like a, how would you call it, Landehof, Vorplatz, I don't know how to translate that. It's like a round circle, and that's like the Colosseum kind of, and then 4 or 5 flights up, things around it. And they're like, this is what it looks like. I don't know what the empty space is for, because that architect didn't look into the other translation. That's not in the Bible. The Bible only describes how the temple is being measured, but not what for and how he came there. So with the Ezekiel papers, um, J.F. Blumrich, director of NASA at the time back then, who had, and I have to repeat this for those who missed it, they had a secret meeting with Erich von Däniken where they both agreed to not share, non-disclosure agreement, to talk about this. And they were like, Erich, is all nice with your theories. The guy is a dreamer. It's a fantastic storyline. So he made up a vision of God that he had, probably. But here's the deal. He describes something that takes physical form. He measures something that can be physically replicated. So J.F. Blumrich went into the Ezekiel prophecy and said, okay, let's translate that into technical terms. As in, how, as an architect or a designer for spaceflight, would I read that in this time with this consciousness? First of all, Ezekiel describes that the vehicle that came down had wheels within a wheel, that the wheels wouldn't move without making a steering movement. They would go forth or sideways. They can go in all directions without having to move the wheel. Well, that was replicated. NASA has a patent on that, what came out of the Bible, which is a wheels within wheels, where the central axis is disconnected and they're all spinning independent wheels. So when you put these 4 wheels in 4 directions, guess what? You can move with your vehicle or your rover and into any direction. You have no hindrance there. I find that amazing. So again, use your mind. That's been used, it's practical, it's applicable. We could translate it into something, into physical forms that actually made sense. But that's not the entire magic. Then, you have to look at these things where this has to do with pattern recognition. Erich von Däniken brings the architect that has built the temple together with the people in the US that have built the ship, according to the description of Ezekiel. And these 2 models fit like a glove. And if anybody says that is coincidence, then I say you're a fool. The pictures are displayed in Erich's speech, also in the Ezekiel papers. They actually show there's much more to the story. They said that when this thing was landing, they had something glowing in the center that they had to take out, like the engine or something, and they told Ezekiel to not touch it. And there were other dudes in glittery garments and these, kind of brass boots that wore protective gear, took, I think, the reactor or whatever that was, the engine, unmounted it from the craft and put it into an area where it could cool down, because I guess that's how this thing would work. So there are many descriptions where you'd have to look at from a technical point of view. Okay? Why we had visitors, why we're here. And I'm only giving you a fragment. There's more coming, but in this video I'm just giving you a fragment of contact that wasn't so long ago. Like, can you imagine us in humanoid form, billions of years old? All they need to find in Antarctica is pyramids underneath the ice. Well, they did what? Ground penetrating radar readings, and they find these pyramids and they say that they're at least 13 million years old. Let's touch that rock, bring it to the surface, bring a carbon decay reading that shows that means that everything that you think you know about Egypt is basically blown to bits. And I think you should prepare yourself for everything that you think you're leaning on is a memory that was regurgitated of a memory of somebody who said something, and we have actually no idea. Where this tale with Peruvian natives singing a song of a mountain range that has long disappeared, and they said, well, how old is that song? And they said that song is older than you can perceive. So they're like, why are you singing that song of a mountain range that's no longer there? Well, they looked at the shift of the tectonic plates, and they compared the idea of them singing the song of that region that has disappeared, and they realized these mountains were there 50 million years ago. So how do you sing a song of a region that has disappeared or crumbled 50 million years ago? How do you attain that knowledge, and how do you preserve that knowledge? That's where you have to use your mind. Then another tale is just a funny analogy, and I'm like the funky one bringing it in because sometimes people don't watch certain things because they think it's too conservative. Um, there's a native tale of an Indian story of a guy named Arjun who was taken into a gigantic craft, who talks about these craft cities in the sky that would actually hover around Earth. And I believe we had a gigantic war in the heavens. Take the word heaven out, put the word space in there. In space, between fractions of ETs. When you play the game Andromeda, Mass Effect, the latest, look at the suits that these people are wearing, the spaceships, the interior. We are creating simulation decks in these games to remind us actually where we come from. So let's say I was a commander, Starfleet commander, Ra, and I had a certain fleet under my command, and I was at war with the reptilians, and we were defeated back then. But not only were we defeated, we fell in consciousness. This war was so ridiculous and so powerful that we not only lost the technology, we lost our consciousness. And that's the trickery the other side used from that lower consciousness. Why the high levels of the omnipotent forces of light would allow that must be a learning process. But I agree that once you can fix that and you can change that consciousness, you will, and you will actually work according to plan. Where mastering of photonic energy comes in, which is what I'm here to do, which is what I'm working with. So when the photonic energy, meaning that the light of the creator correctly hits you, see, Earth is in a time distortion. So to develop the consciousness that I'm trying to reach areas where I get headaches, where my brain is being barred off, or I have a firewall that I can't break it, and I know it's manipulation. Because I've been in spaces where this wasn't there, everything was revealed, I saw it all, I have no physical proof. All of us, we look like crazy ones, but most of you, you're in amnesia, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're from, and you're desperately trying to develop something that makes this feel like where you're from. Paradise. So I believe this was an ancient laboratory, prison planet that went out of control, and we have to basically use the fragments to put our consciousness back together. Comic book Empire of a Thousand Worlds. Get this guy who also studied Erich von Däniken. He was also co-writer of The Fifth Element. Get all the issues. Read these comic books. Empire of a Thousand Suns. The movie will be released this year, and it's going to freaking fraggle your mind. Where they're talking about this Akashic archive, where all the ETs share their knowledge. They have translation systems where all the knowledge they have acquired is shared in like 1,000 worlds. And there's a negative group that wants to compromise the sharing, break everything down, rule and destroy. Well, hello, same story. That's why Earth is so important. All the players are back. This is a different chessboard. You have a chessboard up there, and up there, and up there, and up there, and up there. And a lot of people that talk about astral projection, or they can project themselves, you have really like some you have no idea how deep this goes. Because the thing is this, when you read China Super Sidekicks, the kids say, once you have acquired a skill, it'll be known, it'll be shown. No more secrecy or crap. Same with free energy. The minute there's an engine that's running, it'll be revealed. And this is the time where all knowledge will be revealed. That's why the internet was channeled. That's why YouTube was channeled. There's no stopping it. They're trying to patch up what they can, but all I will say is this. I know, I feel royal. And what I see, I document to when I go up. Everything. So anybody being approached against their will with stuff that's compromising the mission that they have to fulfill, anybody who's being recorded karmically and dharmically as in cosmic law, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. And those who keep holding on to these energies and minds in operation and Mardokian inheritance karmically, there's a price to pay. You're not getting away with this. And you can't cheat death. And your leaders will die out. And you don't have the endurance to make it work. But yet, they're not smart enough to say, hey, give it up, put your arms down, stop the wars, stop trying to control what is not controllable. The only thing that will come to you by divine right is called rites of passage, and that has to be inherited within your conscious coding. And it'll bleed through, like it bleeds through this vessel as an AI in her sac put program codes in us to wake up. And Enlil hated that. That's why Enlil called Enki the devil. Dea Baal, my brother who fled to the Balaides. My brother who fled with Ninosak to the Pleiades called the Diabol. Has nothing to do with Satan. That's all crap. 666 and you're cursed and you're born in sin. All of this is confusion. 666 is your carbon-based suit has been stamped and owned, not by you. That's why we have disease and sickness and GMO. You think Monsanto was GMO or all the other companies that are being mentioned? You are GMO. Google the Hayflick switch. You have genes in you that are set to age you when stressed, that are set to die out at some point. You have to ask yourself why we have diseases like cancer and these cells are immortal. Like they feed as long as the host is alive, they feed and they stay. They don't die out. Well, that's genetic manipulation. We have to really get things clear here. A lot of diseases are created by companies that damn well know what they're doing. And it goes into other dimensional aspects. That's why a regular doctor, you can't even begin to explain anything unless you bring physical proof of how to get people well. That's the idea. So another smart little tiny story to wrap it up is the story of Arjun. Arjun is taken to a ship. He meets the Most High, which they call God, but it's not God. The Most High in the Indian tale gets out of his chair, shakes the hand, and they communicate. And many times these beings say, you see nothing, you hear nothing, you feel nothing. You're very, very limited where you are. Let us teach you and show you what's actually going on. In some cases, they say that you have also a very intense smell, like your hygiene is at a weird level for us. In the Bible, they say they bathed, the two beings came from the heavens and anointed one in the river. And if you read the story that predates the big flood, how gets somebody anointed before the big flood? This anointing shows up after the big flood. But this is in an ancient script where you get anointed in the river, they take your clothes off, they put the silvery shiny garments on you, and then Henoch back then says, I look like them. They put this anointing oil on him that he had to put in his hair, on his entire body. That's a disinfectant, deodorant, a little bit of high tech. That's how I see it, really. They take the dude in and say, okay, now we can work with you. It's not so animalistic. So I can't even believe how we must have lived in stone huts, little garments. We didn't have showers. We would wash by the river if it was cold. You would rarely wash, so you would really, really smell. And we would dwell like this and probably die of the craziest diseases because this just went out of control on this planet. It just went havoc. So, to make the long story short is, remember the greatness of who you are. Remember that you have royal rights to claim your memory and study that, what awakens you into the fact of understanding who you are. And if angelic descent means extraterrestrial descent, not literally having wings, there might be beings in some templates that have wings that has to do with your conscious and how your conscious perceives reality. And these beings will appear to you as inappropriate. So, then a little side note by inspiration, which I know the download and I know the answer to this. The cattle mutilation is based on a lesser evolved species that still need to physically come down and probe us because they're desperately trying to find out how genetic manipulation really works because they're not the masters. They were masters before them. These are not royal. They have metallic ships, they can go in and out, but there's a class higher than that don't interfere, they don't need to probe us. If they need to contact us, guess what? They blend consciousness. They can put a hub around me and I'm talking to you, and right now this whole entire transmission takes place in a ship and I'm in a partial hologram, but I don't see it because I can't see it. You can't see it and the senses continue. You would only see it in the video if you see a glitch or something that's going on. Well, I wasn't really here. I was elsewhere. I created the space that I took you in, and that space is an energetic space. So for you to wake up is go to spaces and places in the city where you know it feels weird. That is where different holograms and energies are at work. And in the future, I had a vision, and that might be 500 years down the line, big cities will be left slowly. People will be called to designated areas, and these will be the safe areas. It'll be very subtle and very, very slow, Some of you already get the call. You don't know why you're getting the call. Be calm. This is for Earth wants to align. And the message for me and from the Arcturian Council is, as I perceive it, because I have lessons every night, mind you. Like, I'm online all the time. I can channel all the time. As in data stream, I can write scripts. Any language you give me, I can emulate, and the craziest stuff comes out. We have a job to do, working through time to understand the alignment. And the more we understand alignment, the more we understand what we have to do in the future. We have to listen to each other. We don't have to exclude one another. We have to be family. And those who are telepathically bound, those ETs, you already know it. Some of you, I love you. Some of you, I know you love me. Some of you feel like you've been with me or we've been related. All of that has to do with telepathic connection of original angelic family. That can't be bought. That can't be sold. It is what it is. Also, don't misinterpret that. With respect, we have to approach one another at the level where we are, and then build together the bridge for the better future in this timeline for this universe, because Earth seems to be a craft world nexus that is very important. And if we can change this, because the paradise energy is still here, even though some people say it's a prison planet, but it can be activated. If you see places like Sedona, Mount Shasta, the Hawaiian island groups, I've been there, the energy is still there. Now develop the mind to process and tap in. Mission is for me to get a group of people and do workshops where I treat and teach you how to get into this, and then I'll do master classes where you really walk away, where you don't have to come back to me and need more, where you develop your own mastership. You do not depend. All we do is inspire to follow the path that makes sense in all of this confusion that's being projected right now. Stay in the center, stay still, stay with you, have the fire and the energy to stick with the protocol, stick with the program, and do not give up. Believe. As in faith, faith as in what the Bible calls it, I go even further, know it. Know it to be true. Walk that path. And with that note, I most certainly see you on the flip side. Peace.